I got burned, I got attacked, and I got bullied in my own comment section by CrossFitters. This is interesting to watch. The bomb went off, and I'm gonna talk about it. So let's check it out. Grüezi miteinander, Gregory von Lebe stark hier. So this is what happened. I made a YouTube video and an Instagram video that I've shared on TikTok as well about the CrossFit games and about this abysmal kettlebell clean and jerk technique that the athletes put on display. CrossFit athletes at the CrossFit Games 2023 performed the worst clean and jerk in the century. Some of them didn't even do a jerk at all, albeit their performance was still highly impressive. You see, when you clean 2 kettlebells, you want to keep your elbows close to the body for maximum efficiency and speed. And when you jerk, you want to fall into a so-called second dip, sort of a mini squat, to decrease the distance the bells have to travel. Finally, dear CrossFit Games executives, stop using double 32s and opt in for 24s instead. Double 32s are weights that professional kettlebell athletes use, and these weights require perfected technique in order to stay injury-free. And 24s, on the other hand, still pose a decent challenge to amateurs. At the CrossFit Games, like you saw in the short that I just showed you, the athletes were putting this abysmal technique on display that I thought, wow, this is just bad. It's just, and some folks didn't even jerk at all. And it clearly says clean and jerk. So if it says clean and jerk, I suppose you're supposed to put a clean and jerk and its proper technique on display. Otherwise, just put something else there, right? I mean, if we have rules, then it should be for everybody who is involved. These guys are so strong and so fit that they can put this horrendous technique on display and look like fools and still crank out reps like mad lads. And I'm aware of this. I am not critiquing their fitness. We know that CrossFit folks are incredibly fit, but this was not the point. The point was the critique or the technique, because it's not just the CrossFit Games. A lot of people actually engage into CrossFit. So if they do, we also have to understand that if this is what's taught at boxes or at gyms, then we have a problem. And the second thing that I've realized is that this type of technique that I've showed you in the video, just the regular rack position that kettlebell athletes use, is so obscure. People don't even know that it exists, that this shows me actually that just kettlebells in general still have this existence in obscurity. They're used, yes, at the CrossFit Games, or at CrossFit boxes, but people still don't know that there's a whole world that is focused on, for example, kettlebell sport, or just competitions, or just working with kettlebells similar to the barbell, where you want to move it in an efficient, as efficiently as possible. Where when it comes to the barbell, you have to follow a bar path, and with kettlebells, we call it a kettlebell path. So first thing that I want to do is I want to consider what the official CrossFit page says about the clean and jerk, and I'm going to share this with you right here. So here we have the legend Jeff Martone, a legend that I still want to get on the podcast. So Jeff, if you're watching this, I hope I'm able to get you on a podcast. I wrote you an email, but I didn't get no reply back. Now, for those of you who don't know Jeff was one of the chosen few back in the days who were with Steve Carter and Dan John and all these OGs in the RKC time, when it was around, I think, the 2000s. And then I think Jeff branched out, and there's a couple of dudes from the RKC crew, the original RKC trainers, that went to Russia to understand the proper technique of kettlebells. Then they went back and then they incorporated it. And I think that Jeff then, as far as I know, he was transferring into CrossFit, and he was implementing kettlebell technique in the CrossFit world. And that makes me even more, or that makes this thing even more sad, because you have a professional like Jeff Martone showing you how it's done, and then you have people critiquing the stuff that I do, and I do it exactly like Jeff does it, because they don't have an understanding of where it all comes from. So let's just see the jerk, because that's what it's all about. So here we have photo number 13. So here's what's happening. You want to Powerfully push the floor away, extending your legs and hips and open up your chest. It's this explosive movement that will propel the kettlebells overhead exactly when you keep it in the rack position like this, like he says, elbows close to the body, right? With a little bit of a lean back. And then you want to drop and lock by quickly sitting back, actively pulling your hips back and down and bend your knees at the same time that you extend your arms overhead. Lock your elbows straight as you lean your upper body forward slightly. So this right here is exactly how you do it with barbells, so it's no difference. So if you want to follow a rule where you have judges sitting next to you counting your reps, you should also hear no counts. If you do not put on display the proper technique of the given exercise that you are supposed to do. CrossFit athletes at the CrossFit Games performed the worst clean and jerk in the century. Some of them didn't even do the jerk properly, albeit their performance was still highly impressive. So, see, I'm not judging their fitness. I know these are monsters. Most definitely they are when it comes to their fitness. When you clean 2 kettlebells, keep elbows close to the body, like Jeff Martone showed us. For maximum efficiency and speed, when you jerk, fall into the second dip to decrease the distance that bells have to travel. So I explained a little bit differently than Jeff. And finally, dear CrossFit Games executive, stop using double 32s and opt in for 24s instead, because double 32s are weights that professional kettlebell athletes use. And just by this quote, many people triggered. They were like, there are professional kettlebell athletes, really? So a lot of folks don't even know that there are athletes who do this professionally, or at least they are athletes who practice in that sport. And these weights require perfect technique in order to stay injury-free. And 24s, on the other hand, still pose a decent challenge to amateurs. This triggered some folks as well, and I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Some YouTubers shared with me that you have to put in some trigger words because maybe some people get triggered by it, and then this leads to a conversation. So yeah, I'm guilty a little bit, but this is how YouTube works to a certain extent. But of course, I'm not saying the CrossFit folks are amateurs. These are the fittest folks on earth, especially the athletes. These are monsters, yes. But when it comes to the kettlebell technique, it looks amateurish. So that's why I'm saying if you're not able to use a proper technique with double 32s, use double 24s and you're safe. Now let's check out some of the comments. Now check this out. The second dip is more efficient but increases the time it takes to cycle reps. Obviously, these athletes are strong enough to press it out, and the time saved is crucial when doing it for a timed race. It's your choice, not a lack of understanding. If you want to do it faster, I agree, but the stamina that you will save throughout the whole movement will benefit you in the long run, because it's not just the clean and jerk, it's also the leg. I think it was climbing on a rope and then it was pushing a sled. So if you are saving time or saving energy, stamina throughout the clean and jerk portion with kettlebells, this will then maybe benefit you with the other exercises. So that's why efficiency always makes sense. So maybe you are a little bit slower, but as you see the other guy next to you cranking out those reps, he has to put the bells down because he's tired, and you're still going. And maybe at the end, like I said, you're also able to keep going. And this comment was displayed often. Many people shared this idea. And while I get it to a certain extent, still I believe this stamina statement or this stamina discussion point stands. Nolson, and I checked him out. I think this dude is the guy who was in the video. I think the first guy right here. Right here, I think. And he's incredibly wobbly. So I think he is one of the worst techniques. But funny, he says, I don't know, but the dude in the first clip looks pretty good to me. So I think he's joking. Or maybe he really thinks that he had great technique. I don't know. But I'm not really into CrossFit. I saw the blue check mark, so I thought, okay, this must be some of those dudes. And this is the best comment. It says, thing is, the job is to get the load from A to B according to the movement standards in as fast as time as possible. Now, we already settled the movement standards right here. So if you deviate from this kind of standard, I think it's supposed to be a no count. But I agree that they can do it so much more efficiently if it was heavy for them, but 232 kg kettlebells are not crazy heavy, so they didn't require a good technique to lift them. I 100% agree. But here's the thing. If you externally rotate your shoulders out like this and you have heavy weights pulling downwards on this side, you might cause injury to your muscles, your ligaments, or your tendons. So that's why I'm saying you have to follow this movement standard to keep your athletes as safe as possible. And this comment, how's your back feel? Or what's up with that crazy position? This is the worst clean ever. If you see me standing like this, you know, in the proper rack position. People do not understand this. They simply do not have a grasp of a proper kettlebell rack position. And this is somehow sad because kettlebells have been around for a long time now, and they have experienced this resurgence in the West, but still it is, like I mentioned in the beginning, in complete darkness, that people do not have a grasp about this rack position. And if you watch my rack position here, and now let's just double check it with Marton. He does the same thing, right? So he has this slightly kyphotic position where you rack both kettlebells on the iliac crest of your hip, but people or CrossFit folks are not aware of it. This comment was also prevalent. Do the workout and beat their score, that'll show them. Or where was your part in the CrossFit? Where was your spot in the CrossFit games? How did you finish? What's your scorecard? Blah, 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 blah. So they all, see here, can you repeat the workout they did and let us know your score? Thanks. So they all got so personally attacked, and we're gonna talk about this in a second. So what does a critique of a particular movement have anything to do with the workout in question? First of all, it's honestly a stupid workout that is going to burn you to the max. So you're going to die doing this workout unless you have prepared for it or you're a CrossFit athlete, which I know they have an incredible fitness, but it is a stupid workout. Really, pushing a heavy sled, I like this though. Combining it with kettlebells, I like this, but the intensity is so high. Of course I'm going to die. Of course, if I would try this, I would die. That's not the point. The point is not about the fitness. The point is about the technique. But it takes some maturity and some wisdom to be able to discern these two things. Didn't realize there was such a thing as a professional kettlebell athlete. Do they make the same as a professional CrossFit athlete? Well, I said, you know what? Most of them don't make a dime off of it. Some of them are sponsored by their countries, but most of them don't make any money off of it. Kettlebell sport, that's why nobody cares about it. That's why it's not popular, because it's not sexy to watch. You don't want to watch a dude doing a 10-minute set, doing 100 reps, doing the same motion all over again. It's not popular. It's not sexy. Nobody's watching it. That's why it's not popular. That's why it doesn't generate money. It's simple as that. So of course they don't I don't think they never make the same amount of money that CrossFit athletes make. And I think I read somewhere it was $300K or $315,000 was the prize money. So that's big money. You'll never see this in the kettlebell sport competition, guaranteed. It even went so far that other folks burn me in their mother tongue. So that's Italian. Qualificati e fallo tu. So qualify yourselves and you do it. That's fascinating. And this is like a sprinter commenting in the running technique of a soccer player, or a high jumper commenting the jumping technique of a volleyball player. You know what? The volleyball player and the soccer player would do good to listen to the advice of the specialist. And this goes to show that people, or just us as a people, we can't handle criticism. We can't handle critique. We can't handle factually based, evidence-based information that goes against what we know or goes against what we have been taught. And I'm biased, so of course I experience this bias as well. But I want to follow a scientific method as much as I can to challenge my own viewpoints and see if they don't hold up, then I have to change them. But that's why I need critique. I need to listen to people outside my sphere of influence and outside my sphere of knowledge in order to improve. But that's the big problem that we see. People do not want to listen because they have been personally attaching themselves to the ideology that they train in. They don't need your second dip when you can just push press it, as if the second dip in the jerk was patented by me. Here's another comment that echoed throughout the thread, and that was they were going for speed on a fatigue from like 8 events, so cut them some slack. Your technique will always take collateral damage when intensity is high and when you are at a competition or at a performance. And I agree. However, it should still be a good lift. If you challenge yourself to the max, your body will automatically turn on its automated systems from what you have learned. So if you have dialed in proper technique, even if you get tired, your body will automate everything for you. So yes, while it is not about perfect technique, especially not at a competition, it should still look good to a certain extent. And finally, I want to show you some comments that I've gotten from people who have, you know, this guy, you see him with his kid on display. So I hope he's a good father. I hope he's a good husband. But online on social media, he's a total bully. So listen what he says. Classic loser, only able to gain clickbaiting by critiquing the biggest fitness movement in the world. You poor lonely little boy, go change your nappy and get some real content. It's fascinating. And you can't react to stuff like this. The only thing that I said is it's sad that you are stooping as low into a very disrespectful manner instead of engaging in a constructive manner where we have where we can have a fruitful discussion. And this comment is probably the reason why some guys don't feel comfortable with their body size. Listen, I'm a lightweight dude, and you know what? I don't really care. I know that I was created in the image of God. I know that He loves me. I know that my family loves me. I love myself, so I'm fine. I have big respect for these giants who walk the earth, but I also know that I have my advantages being the size that I am. So I consider myself a wolf. I always like this description where you go into a war and then you have the bears, the big guys who slam 5 people with one hit of their big Thor-like hammer. And then you have wolves, the lightweight guys like me, the ninjas, who cut your throat in a second, right? So I would be something like this. But watch this, tiny frail little guys have the biggest mouths, I swear. And again, it's a father who acts like this. So yeah, it's social media, it's the world that we live in, and don't attack these guys. It's just the idea that you see that when you offer your opinion on your critique or your comments to the world and it gets viral, probably these are some of the comments that you're gonna get. So if I was a big dude, really muscular and had a big belly, folks be like, fat guys always have the biggest mouths, I swear. So you really cannot please everybody, I suppose. So now, what is the upshot of the situation? I argue that it boils down to us as practitioners of a particular sport identifying ourselves with our preferred tool or philosophy of choice. Exactly what I said a couple of seconds earlier. We are attaching our egos and our self-worth as human beings to our sport, to our training, or to our whatever have you. We do not make the distinction. We now become one. And this identification process leads to us feeling personally attacked when somebody offers a critique. And the funny thing is, I've seen this happen, first of all, to myself. I felt attacked when somebody said something when I wasn't as good as handling criticism. I'm not saying that I'm far from perfect, but I really want to listen and especially create a discussion. I'm not a big fan of debates because I don't want to prove my point right. I don't want to, it's not about proving something, it's about learning. So learning to me means having a discussion and then putting some arguments on the table and see which arguments survive. And also in reaction to our commentary on YouTube and stuff that I'm making, people react like this. And here's the thing. It takes discernment, patience, self-control, and wisdom to see things objectively, and that's not an easy task. About the injury rate among CrossFit athletes, I found a study by Benjamin M. Weisenthal et al., and it says the following. The overall injury rate was determined to be 19.4%, so 75 people out of 386 people who qualified for the survey got injured. And here's a little bit more context to this 19.4% figure. It says overall, we found that 75 participants had experienced at least one injury resulting from a CrossFit workout in the 6 months prior to filling out the survey that met the defined injury criteria. And since many people engage into CrossFit, I think this is abysmal. If you have 20% getting injured in the last 6 months, in a exercise regimen that also normal people undertake, not just athletes, everybody, a lot of people do CrossFit, then I think there's a lot of work that you can do. However, I have to say in defense of CrossFit, first of all, it's a 2014 study, so things have changed. And here's one very important thing in defense of CrossFit and most importantly in defense of proper training. Last, the injury rate was significantly decreased with trainer involvement. Now, this is crucial. And it goes to show, because the trainer is teaching you how to do it correctly. That's the reason why you don't injure yourself as much. So you need proper guidance. And proper guidance means understanding the movement patterns in question and then executing them according to an efficient movement pattern and a safe movement pattern. Now, why did the bomb go off like this? Why do people get mad? Why do they call me a skinny, silly, tiny, frail little dude who needs to change his diapers? It's simple. It's a simple explanation. This behavior is the typical tribal mindset where it is us versus them. So if you say something against the in-group that I'm currently in, then I have to defend it. So it's trigger mechanism that my primitive brain tells me I have to fight this guy because he said something. And that's a system that helped our tribes back in the day to survive when we were battling each other. But today it messes up our social skills because we have a different society. And in defense of CrossFit, once again, it has nothing to do with CrossFit at all. That's the fascinating point. You now may be thinking, well, you're downplaying CrossFit. Now, why are you doing this 180? Because it has to do with the way the human beings are wired. The same thing happened right here where strongman dudes were getting mad at me, and the same situation. They were defending Brian Shaw. They thought I was attacking him. They thought I was against strongman. They told me I'm a frail little dude. So it's the same thing once again. So again, we could now say, well, this has to do with strongman. No, it doesn't have to do with anything like this. It's not exercise related. It's human being related. And now you may be thinking, well, at least the kettlebell guys, they have your back, right? No, they don't. The same thing happened with Hardstyle, Strong First, RKC. It's the same thing. You have people attacking you because you point a flaw out in their technique or in their idea, or at least, let's put it like this. I point out a flaw that I consider a flaw based on the understanding that I have right now, and that's why I talk about it. But it may be that somewhere down the line I have gathered new knowledge and new insights, and then I change my opinion. Kettlebell sport, it's the same thing. In that front, there's also people attacking me because they say, well, you're not a master of sport, or you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't perform. So it's always the same thing. So when the bomb goes off, do not put the blame on a particular group or a particular exercise regimen or a particular philosophy. The blame is on being human, and that's something we cannot change unless we want to. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like it, please share it so I can make some money off of the abuse that I got. And you know what you can do. If you want to really join our powerful kettlebell membership, click the link right here. You can get started for only $1. It's a lot of workouts, a lot of technique courses, a lot of motivation for you to embark on your powerful kettlebell journey and become a lean, mean kettlebell machine. So click the link right here.